Hi, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about fear of death. Now, this is actually a huge fear for some people and it terrifies them. That fear of just simply not existing anymore. Lots of children can also have this fear, and it's something my own daughter worries about. And we talk about death a lot because actually, by speaking about the subject that we're worried about, by not resisting it, not avoiding it, by being open, that can often help reduce the fear. So hi, my name's Catherine, and yes, I just want to have a chat with you today, just a gentle chat, nothing too heavy, but around the fear of death. Now, first of all, I will be sharing with you what my own personal thoughts are on death, and then we'll be having a look at some things that I've learned along the way, and these just might help you. So like I said, if you've watched any of my other videos, you will know that when I talk about when we resist things, they come back stronger. Yes, when we fear something and we're resisting it, the fear gets bigger and bigger. Yes, because fear is an illusion. Yes, so if we can't talk to our family or our friends about death because we're too frightened to, the fear doesn't go away because we're avoiding it. It actually gets bigger. And I know I feel very much in the country that I live in, Great Britain, that death is not something we really talk about too much, but maybe we should. Yes. So what's my personal belief? Well, I do have what I would say is a deep inner knowing. I had a spiritual experience back in 2015, and I do have what I suppose you would term as faith. Okay, so when you have faith, you don't need proof, you just believe. Now, my belief, I don't go to a church or a mosque or anything like that. My connection with God is very personal, and I sort of feel very connected when I'm out in nature. I don't feel that I have to define my belief particularly to anyone. It's a personal thing to me. But I do believe that God is love. And I think that we are all consciousness and that we are all very much connected. And that I think that when we die, we actually return home. And I feel that our home, you can label that as heaven if you like, is love, is purity. And I feel that as much as I can, I really on earth want to work from a place of love. And I have a deep knowing that when I die, I will simply be returning home. Now this for me is great because I don't think that everything just stops. actually, there are a lot of people who don't have that faith, who don't have that deep inner knowing. And therefore, death can seem really scary. Excuse me, just get some water. So I'm just going to share with you some things that I've come across in the last few years, for example, that might help you. I've been watching, there's a woman on YouTube. I will put her video, the video that I'm about to talk about, in the description box below. So if you wish to view it, you can, okay? So I started watching this lady on YouTube. I think she's called the Hospice Nurse. So she is one of these incredible nurses that cares for people at the end of their lives. Now, I stumbled across her video quite by accident when I was looking up Alzheimer's, because that's something my mum has. Anyway, she has this, she talks a lot about death, and she has been with, that's her job, to be with people when they die. And she tells this one particular story that she says in her video. I will explain it to you because you might not want to watch her video. She talks about this one particular story that has completely taken away her fear of death. She was with a young man in the run-up to the end of his life, and she explains in her video that the nurses were all very close to this particular person. He didn't have a lot of family, and they really they formed a very strong bond. And she knew that he was going to pass away, and she had left her workplace for the day or the evening, and she got in her car, and suddenly she had this feeling, this experience, and it was like a really strange experience. She was just in her car and she heard the voice of this man, and he was saying to her, "Oh my gosh, if only I knew how beautiful, how amazing this was, I would never have been worried." And this voice was very strong in her mind. Yeah, she just heard this, and he kept saying, "Oh, I can't believe it, I can't believe it, it's amazing." And she had this experience, and it was quite like strange. Yeah, she was ooh. And then her phone went off, and it was one of her colleagues who said, "So and so has just passed away." And it was exactly the same time that she had this. And she explains in her video that she now does not have a fear of death because this experience was so strong. She's had many other experiences, but as someone who is a hospice nurse and she does this for her job, it was very interesting to hear her talk. So I will link that particular video in the description box below. Another thing that I came across was somebody left, and I found this book actually. Somebody left this book, a friend of mine left this book in my home. And I never think things happen by chance. I always think there's a reason. So this is years ago now, but I read it. And it's called Proof of Heaven and it's written by a neurosurgeon. Yeah, and it was a long time ago that I read this, but I still sort of remember the main bits of the book. So this was a neurosurgeon who was very logical, very analytical. He didn't believe in life after death at all. And he became very ill. And I believe it was like meningitis or something. His whole body was, he had terrible infection. And he ended up dying in the hospital and but then being revived and going into a coma. Anyway, I'm really like, it's a whole book, so I'm just relaying the bits I remember. Basically, he retells how when he had died in the hospital, he'd gone to, we'll say, heaven, and he was greeted by this young girl. He didn't recognize her, he didn't know who she was, but she was, he was greeted by her, and he talked about how about just immense feelings of love and just amazing feelings, and he talks about this experience. And then he says how years later, after he'd recovered, it took him a long time to recover from his illness, he decided he was going to look for his biological family because he had been adopted. Now, he went on a search and he found some members of his biological family, and he was chatting to them, and they told him he had had a sister, but he never knew he'd had a sister, but he had a biological sister. But sadly, she had passed away. He was shown a photograph of this young lady, and he couldn't believe it. It was the same woman that had met him in heaven. I mean, how crazy is that? So if you do have a fear of death, there are many, many, many documented near-death experiences that you can find either in books or on YouTube. And I have watched a few of them just out of interest, and they all seem to have the same theme running through them, that actually when the person dies, it's like an unbelievable, overwhelming feeling of love and light and just incredible. And many people who have had near-death experiences will say that oftentimes they didn't want to come back because it was just bliss. It was like blissful, incredible experience. And it's funny because for me personally, that very much ties in with how I feel about death and God, and that God is love and light, and how our consciousness is just rejoined at the end of our life. So if you do have a fear of death, just try to have a look read up on some things if you don't have a faith. Yes, because actually, if you can open yourself up to talking about how you feel, then that will be a lot easier. When I say I don't have a fear of death, it doesn't mean that I don't worry about how I will feel if a loved one passes away, because obviously when someone dies you're going to miss them hugely, and death can feel so final. But actually, in my experience, so my father passed away quite a few years ago now, but I very much feel like he's still with me. It's a feeling. It's not something you can really put into words, but I feel like he's there. But yes, of course you will grieve and you will cry. But for me personally, having that knowing, that deep inner knowing of belief that when we die, our souls are carried on, is a really big comfort. So I hope that maybe just by talking about this today, that it might have helped somebody out there. And yeah, do have a look at near-death experiences. There are many of them on YouTube, and they might help you too, because the more we talk and learn about the things that we fear, the less we resist that fear, the more that fear reduces. Okay, thank you so much for watching today. If you found this video at all helpful, please do give me a like. Please comment. I would love to hear from you and your thoughts on this subject. And please do subscribe and come and join our family. Okay, much love. Have a great day. Bye.